don't want you to know about this verse. Buried in the ancient texts, a single line was deleted, suppressed, and almost lost, a line that shatters the Sunday school story of the flood. This is the forbidden key to Genesis 6. This is not about rain. This is about a war in heaven that spilled onto earth, about a genetic corruption so profound it required a global reset. You're about to discover the real reason God sent the waters. The reason was not human sin alone. It was something far more terrifying, something that still echoes in our myths and our very DNA. You were made for this revelation. But first, you must survive the truth. Open your Bible. Turn to Genesis chapter 6. You know the surface story. Humanity grew wicked, God was grieved. He decided to send a flood, but your eyes glide over the real trigger. The verses are there, yet they feel like a cryptic dispatch from a war we were never briefed on. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they took wives for themselves. Who are these sons of God? Theologians have whitewashed it for centuries, calling them Sethites, righteous men. But the ancient world heard those words and trembled. In the original tongue, in the context of the cosmic courtroom, Bene Elohim means one thing: divine beings, watchers, angels. This is the crack in the narrative. This is where the official story fractures. For if heavenly beings crossed the boundary, if they mingled their essence with humanity, then the flood was not a punishment. It was a containment protocol, a surgical strike against a hybrid infection. The secret verse, the one that survived in the margins, in the banned books, in the whispers of desert mystic spells, out the contamination in horrific detail. And it changes everything. If something in you recognizes this tectonic truth, and you want me to continue pulling back the veil on histories they tried to erase, let me know with a comment. And stay until the end. Your reaction is the signal that this dangerous path must be walked. To understand the cataclysm, you must first see the world that was. Picture the antediluvian earth, not a primitive nursery, but a high strangeness reality vibrating with a different frequency. The veil between heaven and earth was thin, permeable. Humanity was young, brimming with latent potential, living for centuries, and above them, tasked with guidance and observation, were the Watchers. These were not cherubs on clouds, they were powerful, intelligent agents of the divine council, stationed as guardians. The earth was a garden temple, and humanity was its priesthood in training. But a rebellion was brewing in the heavenly ranks. A faction of these Watchers, led by figures whose names would become legends of darkness, Shemihaza, Azazel, looked down, and they coveted. They saw the beauty of human women, but more than that, they saw an opportunity. The human form was a vessel of incredible potential, tied to the earth, yet bearing the divine image. What if that vessel could be augmented? What if their own spiritual essence could be fused with mortal clay to create a new order of being, a hybrid dynasty? This was the original transgression, not just lust, but a cosmic hijacking of the creative order. The boundary between creature and creator was the first law. They prepared to shatter it, and the stage was set for an invasion that would force heaven's hand. Before the fall, there was an architecture, a sacred hierarchy holding creation in balance. At the summit, the unseen one. Then, the councils and choirs of the Elohim. Then, the Watchers assigned to nations and to humanity. Then humankind, made a little lower than the heavenly beings, yet crowned with glory and honor, stewards of the physical realm. This was the chain of command, the flow of blessing and governance. The Watchers' sin was a mutiny with geological consequences. It was a violation of jurisdictional boundaries. They were to observe, to report, perhaps to guide, but never to intervene, never to intermix. Their descent was a coup. By taking human wives, they did more than break a celestial law. They attempted to graft an unauthorized, rebellious strand of spiritual authority directly into the human bloodline. They sought to build a kingdom on earth answerable to them, not to the Most High. This corrupted the very architecture of authority. The hybrid offspring would be natural rulers, possessing preternatural strength and knowledge, but devoid of the divine image's moral compass. They would be psychic tyrants, Nephilim, the fallen ones. The earth's governance was being usurped from within. The sanctuary was being defiled by its own guardians. Heaven's response wasn't merely anger, it was a strategic crisis. The infection was at the structural level, and the cure would have to be total. The evidence survived because the stakes were cosmic. The rupture was not a single event, but a slow-motion catastrophe. The Watchers descended. Tradition says 200 of them swore an oath on Mount Hermon, a place that would forever after be synonymous with boundary-breaking rebellion. They took wives, and they taught. This is critical. Their transgression was dual, forbidden union and forbidden knowledge. Azazel taught humanity the art of war, metallurgy, weapon-making, the cosmetics of deception and seduction. Others taught astrology, root-cutting, sorcery. They unlocked the secrets of the natural world, but divorced from wisdom, this knowledge became a weapon. They gifted technology without conscience. They accelerated civilization on a path of violent, self-gratifying power. But the core sin was the union itself. The text says they went in unto them. This is covenant language, a terrible mirror of divine intimacy. They planted their seed, and that seed took root. The women conceived. Can you imagine the horror and the twisted pride of those pregnancies, carrying something that was neither human nor angel, but a forced synthesis? The mothers knew, the Watchers knew, and heaven watched. The court in session, the gavel poised. The genetic lines of humanity, the sacred trust of the image-bearers, were being spliced with rebel spiritual DNA. The garden was being genetically modified into a garrison for rebels. The floodgates of heaven were still closed, but the floodgates of corruption were wide open, and in the wombs of those women, the reason for the coming deluge was already kicking, already growing. The offspring arrived. The Nephilim, the giants, the mighty men of old, men of renown. The biblical text glosses over the horror with epic labels, but the forbidden texts scream the details. They were not just tall, they were monstrous. Their appetites were insatiable. They consumed the resources of the earth. Then they consumed humanity itself. The Book of Enoch, the text that holds the secret verse, describes a planet in agony, and they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. This is not mere violence. This is a breakdown of the created order. The hybrids were ontological anomalies, creatures with no place in the ecology of life. They defied categorization, and their existence was a contagion. The wickedness God saw was not just moral failure, it was a systemic corruption of life itself. The image of God in humanity was being drowned out by a violent, chaotic, hybrid consciousness. The earth was literally groaning under the weight of these beings. Their violence filled the world, and then the most devastating verdict: my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. The divine spirit was withdrawing because humanity was no longer purely flesh. In the intended sense, it was now a corrupted, hybridized flesh. The connection was being severed. The flood, then, was a radical surgery to remove the malignant tissue and preserve a pure sample. Noah was perfect in his generations. His genealogy was uncorrupted. The ark was a genetic ark. But what about the secret verse? The one that confirms this was a genetic reset. It's coming, and it implicates you. The primary witness to all of this was a man who walked with God and was taken, Enoch. His testimony is the master key. While Genesis gives the headline, Enoch's banned book provides the gruesome classified briefing. He was shown the heavens, the rebellion, the imprisonment of the Watchers, and the coming judgment. His writings were so explosive, they were excluded from the official canon, labeled apocryphal, hidden away. But they never died. Enoch records the Watchers' own confession to him. We have lain with women, we have defiled ourselves, and we have revealed to them every kind of sin. He names their leaders, he details their crimes, and he delivers the celestial sentence, a great flood to cleanse the earth from all corruption and from all sin. The corruption is specified. It is the corruption of the seed. The secret verse lies within this testimony. It's a line that connects the Watcher's sin directly to the flood's purpose in a way Genesis 6 only hints at. Enoch says the hybrids would afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, and do battle and work destruction on the earth. Their very existence was an act of war against creation, so God tells Enoch the plan to destroy from the face of the earth the children of the Watchers. Not the children of men, the children of the Watchers. The target was specific. The flood was a targeted genocide of hybrid DNA. This is the suppressed truth. The evidence survived in Ethiopic, in Aramaic fragments, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it forces a terrifying question. What if the corruption wasn't fully wiped out? The hidden testimony doesn't stop with Enoch. It echoes in a haunted library of suppressed texts, the Book of Jubilees, the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, the Dead Sea Scrolls, Book of Giants. These are the leaked documents of the antediluvian war. They form a consistent, terrifying narrative that orthodoxy tried to bury. Why? Because it presents a universe far more dangerous and interactive than the sanitized version. It tells of giants surviving the flood, of their spirits becoming the demons that plague humanity, a second-wave spiritual corruption. It suggests the Watchers' forbidden knowledge, the magic, the sorcery, the star law was passed down through secret lines, becoming the foundation of pagan empires and occult kingdoms after Babel. This hidden testimony reframes all of history as a continuation of that first rebellion. The secret verse is the linchpin. In these texts, the reason for the flood is explicitly and repeatedly stated: to erase the bastard offspring of the Watchers and to imprison the rebel angels until the final judgment. The flood was an act of cosmic quarantine. Noah's family was preserved because they were a clean genetic line. This is the scandal. This means human evil, while real, was the secondary symptom. The primary disease was an extraterrestrial spiritual genetic attack. The official canon hints at it. The Apocrypha shouts it. The early church fathers debated it fiercely. Some, like Justin Martyr and Clement of Alexandria, accepted it. Others, led by Augustine, vehemently rejected it, preferring the simpler Sethite theory. Augustine won the doctrinal battle. The Watcher narrative was sidelined, labeled myth, but it never died. It went underground, and a lineage of keepers guarded it with their lives. Who were the keepers of this forbidden knowledge? They were the ones who refused to let the memory die. First, the Essenes at Qumran, who copied the Book of Enoch and the Book of Giants onto scrolls and hid them in jars in the desert, a time capsule for a future age. Then the Ethiopic Orthodox Church, which defiantly kept Enoch in its biblical canon, treasuring it while the West forgot. Later, medieval Kabbalists wrestling with the mysteries of the sons of God in the Zohar. Alchemists and mystics who saw in the story a parable of corrupted matter seeking purification. They were the underground stream flowing beneath the official river of doctrine. They understood that this story was the key to understanding evil, not as a mere human choice, but as an invasive, intelligent force that hijacks creation. These keepers passed down the maps to the hidden verse, the codes that unlocked Genesis 6. They operated in whispers, in coded art, in grimoires disguised as heresy. They knew the truth. The flood was a reset, but the war was not over. The seed of the serpent took many forms. If you're hearing this and feeling a resonance, a deep knowing that this hidden history explains the shadows in our world, you are not alone. You were made for this lineage. If you're realizing you're part of this fellowship of seekers, write in the comments what most shook you and share this with one other person who needs this puzzle piece. Your voice helps reassemble the fragmented truth. The keepers held the line. And then, in the 20th century, the earth itself gave up its secrets. The modern discovery was a bombshell. In 1947, a Bedouin boy threw a stone into a cave at Qumran and heard the crack of pottery. The Dead Sea Scrolls emerged from the darkness. Among them, fragmentary but undeniable, were copies of the Book of Enoch in Aramaic. Here was the apocryphal text, found in the library of a devout Jewish sect centuries before Christ. It was real, it was ancient. It was considered scripture by the community that may have influenced John the Baptist. Scholars were stunned. The scrolls proved the Watcher narrative was mainstream Jewish thought in the Second Temple period, the very world Jesus inhabited. He referenced it. He spoke of the days of Noah. He alluded to angels who did not keep their proper domain. The New Testament book of Jude quotes Enoch directly. The evidence was no longer heretical fringe, it was a recovered part of the original context. Furthermore, archaeology began uncovering giant skeletons, massive megalithic structures that defied explanation, global myths of gods mating with humans. The puzzle pieces from the banned books started fitting into the physical record. The secret verse had a provenance, it had a historical home. This wasn't Gnostic fantasy, this was a foundational worldview that the biblical authors assumed their audience knew. The discovery meant we had been reading Genesis with a severed footnote section for 1,600 years. We were missing the director's commentary, and what that commentary reveals rewrites the nature of the conflict you're in right now. The deeper truth is theological dynamite. If the flood was a response to hybrid corruption, then the core narrative of the Bible shifts. The conflict is not merely human disobedience versus divine law. It is a cosmic rebellion seeking to corrupt the sacred human vessel from within. The seed of the serpent is not a metaphor for human evil. It is a literal, corrupted genetic spiritual lineage opposing the seed of the woman. This reframes everything. It explains the bizarre recurrence of giants after the flood, Anakim Rephaim, mentioned in Numbers and Deuteronomy, suggesting either a second incursion or a surviving strain. It explains the extreme Canaanite genocide commands, not ethnic cleansing, but the excision of remaining hybridized, demonically aligned bloodlines. It paints the portrait of a god not as a capricious tyrant, but as a surgeon fighting a metastatic spiritual cancer. Most profoundly, it reframes the mission of Christ. The Son of God enters the world not just as a moral teacher, but as the ultimate, pure, unhybridized human, the last Adam. He comes to do what Noah's flood could only do temporarily, to permanently defeat the corrupting power, to redeem humanity from this ancient curse, and to restore the original uncorrupted image. His victory on the cross is over the principalities and powers, the spiritual heirs of that first rebellion. This is the grand narrative: creation, corruption, cataclysm, and redemption aimed at the deepest level of our being. You are not just a sinner needing forgiveness. You are a target in an ancient genetic and spiritual war. And your identity in Christ is the declaration that the corruption ends with you. This is your calling. You are living in the aftermath of that ancient war, in a world where the echoes of the Watcher's knowledge technology without wisdom, obsession with genetic modification, the glorification of transgressive power are everywhere. The secret verse is not just history, it's a diagnostic tool for your time. It explains the deep, inhuman evil that occasionally erupts, the spiritual hunger for forbidden knowledge, the allure of crossing boundaries God set. Your calling is to recognize the pattern, To guard the image of God within you, your humanity, your integrity, your spirit, from any ideology or force that seeks to hybridize it, to mix it with demonic inspiration, to corrupt its essence. You are called to be part of the clean line, not in a racial sense, but in a spiritual genetic sense, a vessel purely dedicated to the purposes of the Creator, uncorrupted by the rebellious knowledge and spiritual adultery of the age. You were made for this vigilance. The story of the flood is your warning and your mandate to discern the spirits, to reject the forbidden unions of ideology and practice that breed monstrous results, and to build an ark of faithfulness in a world awash with the same old corruption. The secret verse screams that the stakes are higher than morality. They are ontological. They are about what kind of creature you will be. Will you remain fully, faithfully human, bearing the divine image? Or will you consent to an upgrade from forbidden sources? The evidence survived so you could choose. And the physical proof that this is not a fairy tale is scattered across the globe, waiting for you to see it. The physical traces are undeniable. Look beyond the texts. See the global architecture of the impossible. The megaliths of Baalbek, with foundation stones weighing 200 tons, moved and positioned with precision that baffles modern engineers. The pyramids, aligning with celestial patterns, knowledge of which was supposedly impossible for their age. Cultures worldwide, from the Sumerians with their Anunnaki, to the Greeks with their Titans and Olympian dalliances, to the Mesoamerican tales of feathered serpents, all share the core myth. Gods came down, mingled with humans, taught them secrets, and produced semi-divine heroes or monsters. This is the collective memory of the Watcher event. Then there are the skeletal anomalies, giant femur bones reported in old excavation reports, elongated skulls from Paracas that show non-human cranial volume, legends of giants from the Canaanites to the Native American Hopi. The mainstream dismisses them, but the volume of testimony is staggering. These are the forensic crumbs of the pre-flood and post-flood world. The secret verse gives context to the ruins. The floodwaters receded, but the physical evidence of the corrupted civilization and its post-Babel echoes remained. The giants' bones were in the land to terrify the Israelite spies. Goliath was not an anomaly. He was a remnant. The physical world whispers the truth the texts shout. The earth itself is a witness to the corruption and the cataclysm. But this evidence threatens powerful narratives. And so, for centuries, a systematic opposition worked to bury it, not in sand, but in ridicule and dogma. The opposition was not a conspiracy of evil men, but often a conspiracy of comfort. Theologians like Augustine, seeking to create a neat, systematic theology of sin based on human will alone, forcefully argued against the angel view of Genesis 6. It was too messy, too mythological, too reminiscent of pagan tales. The Church, once it gained imperial power, needed a controllable narrative. The Enochian texts were excluded from the canon. References to them were suppressed. The sons of God became the sons of Seth. The giants became just big, bad men. The cosmic war was reduced to a morality play. This sanitized version was easier to teach, easier to use for social control. It placed all blame and responsibility squarely on human shoulders, which was partially true, but it erased the dimension of supernatural invasion and corruption. This was the great cover-up, not done with malice, but with a desire for doctrinal simplicity. The problem is, it left the Bible full of puzzling references it couldn't explain. It made God seem arbitrarily violent. It stripped the spiritual battle of its historical foundation. The opposition continues today in academia, which dismisses the Watcher narrative as late Jewish apocalyptic fantasy, and in pulpits that fear opening this Pandora's box. They fear it leads to obsession with demons or wild speculation. But their fear has cost the Church a vital framework for understanding evil. Now you know what they feared. The question is, in the face of this recovered truth, what will you do? Will you let it reshape your worldview, or will you retreat to the simpler, sanitized story? Your decision has ramifications, because this isn't just about the past. Your decision is urgent. This knowledge is not for armchair speculation. It is a lens. Now that you have it, you will start to see the patterns everywhere. In the push to transcend humanity through unchecked technology, in the cultural glorification of transgression, in the spiritual forces that seek to blend truth with deception to create monstrous hybrids of ideology. Your decision is to put on the lens of the secret verse, to read your Bible again and see the shadow of the watchers behind the giants, behind the occult practices of Canaan, behind the warnings about principalities and powers, to understand your own spiritual battles as part of this ancient, ongoing conflict over the purity of the human vessel. Will you be a keeper of this recovered truth? Will you share it not as sensationalism, but as the missing key to the divine drama? This is the moment you choose your side in the oldest war. You can close this video and go back to the surface level story, or you can let this truth descend into your spirit and recalibrate your entire faith. If this revelation is rewriting the sacred story for you, and you want me to keep unearthing these buried connections, the links to Babylon, to the end times, to the spiritual identity of Christ, then tell me in the comments how this changes your view and follow this channel. Your presence here is the signal that the Keeper's lineage continues. The final revelation is this: the secret verse points directly to you and to what is coming. The final unveiling. The secret verse, preserved across millennia, is not one line in one book. It is the screaming consensus of the hidden testimony. The earth was corrupt before God. The earth was filled with violence, and God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. The Hebrew word for corrupt here, shachat, means to destroy, to ruin, to spoil by corrupting. All flesh had done this. How can flesh corrupt its way? The secret verse in the fuller context reveals the flesh was genetically and spiritually adulterated. The way its very mode of existence was hijacked. The flood was sent to destroy them with the earth. The target was the corrupted flesh. Now hear the echo in the New Testament. Peter says the spirits who sinned in the days of Noah are now in prison. Jude says the angels who left their proper dwelling are kept in eternal chains. They are waiting. For what? For the judgment. And here is the explosive payoff. Jesus says, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." The same corruption, the same boundary-breaking rebellion, the same mingling of the divine realm with humanity in forbidden ways, it will climax again. The secret verse was not just about the past, it is the prototype for the final conflict. You were made for this hour. You have the testimony. You know the pattern. The ark is no longer made of wood. It is the faithful community, the pure doctrine, the unhybridized witness in a world rushing toward another terrible mingling. Guard the image. Keep the line. The waters rose once. They will not rise again as water. But the fire is coming, and you now know what it seeks to burn away.